All right, so you ready for something a little different today? Well, we're going to ditch the research papers and articles for this deep dive. Instead, we're going to explore some real-life Christmas horror stories.
Oh, wow. That's pretty spooky for the holidays.
Yeah, you know what they say, 'tis the season. But seriously, these stories are pretty creepy, and what makes them even creepier is that they're first-hand accounts, not just fictional tales. We're going to be diving into a popular YouTube video called Four Scary Real Christmas Horror Stories by Mr. Nightmare.
Oh, wow. Okay, so we're talking about real people, real experiences. That adds a whole other level of chills.
Exactly. We're going to be exploring the stories themselves, but also, what makes them so scary, especially during a time when we're supposed to be all about joy and cheer.
That's a good point. It's like
Mhm.
the holidays are supposed to be about family and warmth and all that good stuff, so why are we drawn to these dark stories?
That's what we're going to try to figure out. Okay, so let's dive into the first story, The Mall Santa. It's about a single mother who has a pretty unsettling encounter with, well, a mall Santa while she's out Christmas shopping with her son.
Ooh, a mall Santa.
Yep.
Okay, now that's an image that can go very wrong very quickly.
Right. It's like we have this idea of Santa Claus as this jolly, harmless figure, but what happens when that image gets twisted?
I think that's what makes this story so scary. It plays on those expectations. We see Santa as safe, but this story reminds us that even the most familiar figures can be dangerous.
Okay, so back to the story. This mom and her son are leaving the mall when they bump into Santa. He starts by asking her son what he wants for Christmas. Typical Santa stuff, right? But then he turns his attention to the mother, and this is where things start to get creepy.
Oh no, what does he do?
He starts complimenting her. And not just like, you look nice, compliments. He's saying things like, your mother's a looker to her son. Even winks at her.
Wow. Yeah, that's way beyond just being friendly. He's crossing a line there.
Definitely. And it gets worse. When he leans in for a goodbye hug, he tries to turn it into a kiss on the lips.
Oh my God, no way.
Yeah. The mom manages to pull away, but it's obvious the Santa is way too creepy, and this is where the story really gets unsettling.
It does. How?
Well, they get home, the doorbell rings, and guess who it is?
Oh no, don't tell me. It's the mall Santa.
The mall Santa. He says she dropped something, but his tone is, insistent, creepy. She calls the mall to report him, but they say they don't actually hire Santas.
Wait, what? They don't hire Santas. So who is this guy?
That's what's so creepy about it. He's like this phantom Santa lurking around, and it gets even worse. She sees him outside her window a few days later yelling, ho, ho, ho! She calls the police, but a few nights after that, she finds a note taped to her door.
A note. What does it say?
Well, that's where we'll pick up next time.
Oh, come on. You can't leave us hanging like that.
Don't worry, we'll get back to the story.
You better. This is getting good.
I know, right? This deep dive's just getting started.
So what did the note say?
Okay, are you ready for this? It said, I know I was forward the other night, but sometimes my feelings get the best of me. I think we have something special.
Oh, wow. He thinks they have something special.
Right.
After basically trying to force himself on her.
I know, right? Talk about delusional. And it gets worse. He signed it, get this, Ted, and left his phone number, inviting her to plan something someday.
He's really doubling down on the creepiness. That's textbook stalker behavior.
Absolutely. It's like he completely misinterpreted the entire encounter, saw it as some kind of romantic connection.
And the fact that he felt so comfortable leaving his personal information, like it was no big deal, that's chilling.
It's like he had no concept of boundaries. Luckily, the police got involved, and Ted never contacted her again. But this story definitely makes you think twice about those seemingly jolly figures we encounter during the holidays.
It's a reminder that you can never be too careful, even in seemingly safe environments. Speaking of safe environments, this next story, The Christmas Eve Intruder, takes a different approach to subverting holiday expectations. It's about a 6-year-old boy who encounters a burglar posing as Santa Claus on Christmas Eve.
Okay, this one really got to me. Imagine you're a kid, it's Christmas Eve, the most magical night of the year, and instead of Santa, you find a burglar lurking around your Christmas tree.
Wow, yeah. That's a nightmare scenario for a kid. What happens?
So this poor kid, he's up late playing video games, decides to sneak to the bathroom. That's when he hears rustling coming from downstairs.
It's funny how even the smallest sounds can be so terrifying when you're not expecting them.
Exactly. And it's Christmas Eve, right? So your mind's not exactly going to burglar.
No, definitely not. You're thinking Santa, presents, all that good stuff.
Right. So the kid peeks into the living room and sees someone with a flashlight behind the tree. But instead of Santa, it's a burglar stuffing presents into a bag.
Oh man, talk about a ruined Christmas.
I know, right? And he's only 6. The poor kid starts screaming for his parents, and the burglar, obviously startled, runs away.
So they didn't catch the guy.
No, he got away. But the story gets even creepier. The burglar didn't just take presents, he also stole some of the ornaments from the tree.
That's so strange. Why would he steal ornaments?
I think it adds to the violation. It's not just about stealing material possessions. It's like he wanted to take something that held sentimental value.
You're right. It's like stealing a piece of their Christmas memories.
And you know what's even weirder? Their house wasn't the only one targeted that night. They later found out another house a few blocks away was burglarized in the same way, with the burglar dressed as Santa.
Wow, that's really unsettling. It's like this guy was intentionally trying to ruin Christmas for people.
It's like he wanted to exploit those holiday expectations, twist them into something sinister.
Okay, this next story is a bit different. It's called The Flickering Lights, and it actually highlights the importance of observation and quick thinking. It's often those small details, the things we might normally dismiss, that can be really important.
You're telling me. This story starts with a couple who notice their next-door neighbor, Paul, acting a little strange. His car hasn't moved in days, the blinds are always drawn, it's like he's isolating himself.
That's definitely a red flag, especially during the holidays when people are usually more social.
Right. So one night, they notice Paul's Christmas lights are flickering, but it's not a programmed pattern, like those twinkling ones people put up. It's more random, like someone's trying to send a message in Morse code or something.
Interesting. I'd be curious too. Did they try to figure out what the lights meant?
Well, the next day, Paul's car is still there, blinds are still closed. That night, the lights start flickering again. So the narrator, being a good neighbor, decides to check on Paul.
That's nice of him. But, sometimes it's better to mind your own business, especially when something feels off.
Yeah, this is definitely one of those times. So he knocks on the door. Long wait. Finally, Paul answers, acting really weird. Claims he doesn't know anything about the flickering lights.
But then something happens. Right, that's what you were saying about quick thinking.
You got it. The narrator hears something from inside the house, like a kid yelling for help.
Wait, a kid? But you said Paul didn't have kids.
Exactly. And at this point, he doesn't want to confront Paul directly. He doesn't know what's going on, doesn't want to put the kid in danger. So he goes back home, tells his fiancée to call the police.
That's smart. Calling for backup was definitely the right move in that situation.
Oh, yeah. So the police arrive, search the house, and guess what they find?
Don't keep me in suspense. What did they find?
A young boy locked in the basement. He'd been kidnapped. Turns out he had figured out how to make the Christmas lights flicker from the basement, using them to signal for help whenever he saw someone outside.
Oh my God, that poor kid. But also, that's incredible. To think under that kind of pressure, he was able to come up with that plan.
I know, right? It's both terrifying and amazing. They rescued him, reunited him with his family, all thanks to those flickering Christmas lights.
It really makes you appreciate the power of observation. You never know when something seemingly insignificant might actually be a cry for help.
All right, ready for the final story. This one is called The Crawl Space Intruder, and it's about a couple who discovers someone living in their crawl space.
A crawl space. Oh man, that's like prime horror movie territory. Just the thought of someone hiding under your house. Shudder.
I know, right? It's like this primal fear of the unknown lurking just beneath the surface. So in this story, the narrator and his girlfriend are spending a cozy weekend at home watching Christmas movies, classic holiday stuff.
Sounds idyllic.
It is, until they run out of wine. The narrator heads out to the liquor store down the block.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, but while he's gone, his girlfriend starts hearing noises coming from the crawl space under the living room, like scratching sounds, thumps.
That's creepy. I'd be freaking out.
I know, I would be too. So the narrator gets back, checks the crawl space, doesn't see anything. But later that night, they both hear this loud thud from down there. He decides to go back down to investigate, this time with a flashlight.
Oh no. This is where it gets scary.
Right. He's down there in the dark, and he smells urine, and he thinks he sees something move in the shadows.
Nope. I'd be out of there.
He gets out of there pretty quickly, goes back upstairs. They try to ignore it. But later that night, the narrator wakes up to use the bathroom and sees a shadowy figure at the end of the hallway.
No way. Like a full-on figure.
Yeah. So he closes the bedroom door, locks it, but then he hears footsteps and the doorknob turning, and a deep voice from the other side whispers, "Hello."
Oh my God. That's the stuff of nightmares.
His girlfriend wakes up, starts screaming. He calls 911 immediately, but by the time the police arrive, the intruder's gone.
Did they ever figure out who it was?
They found a puddle of urine in the crawl space, so they figured it was probably a homeless person seeking shelter.
Wow. So this wasn't some malicious intruder, just someone desperate for a warm place to stay.
Yeah, it's sad, but still terrifying. It's a reminder that even in our homes, we're not always as safe as we think we are.
It's a good point. These stories, they're all pretty scary, but they also make you think.
That's what we try to do here, right? Go beyond just the surface level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you think the takeaway is from all these stories?
Well, they all kind of play with this idea of the holidays not being as perfect as we imagine them to be.
Yeah, that's true. Like, we have this idealized image of Christmas, but these stories show the darker side of things.
And they remind us that even during the holidays, bad things can happen. People can be vulnerable.
And that we should be aware of our surroundings. Pay attention to those little details. Trust our instincts.
Absolutely.
Fine.
So maybe not quite the holiday cheer we were expecting, but definitely some food for thought.
Yeah, I'd say so. Thanks for having me on. This was a really interesting deep dive.
Thanks for joining me. And to our listeners, happy holidays. Be safe out there.